Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot and to part 5 of the Soul Activation series. So in this particular set of pick a card readings, we are looking at the 9th and 10th stages of the 12-stage process of Joseph Campbell's Hero's Quest, because that's the structure, the loose structure that I've been kind of loosely using with some sort of modifications or energies depending on what's been coming up in the readings to show the process of a soul activation from its point of inception through to its point of mastery. So we're getting near the end, and this actual penultimate pick a card of the series is looking at two very interesting points. In part 4, if you saw it, we were looking at the actual preparation for and doing the change, the full soul activation, the full coming into who you were in whatever context it was. Whether that is a one-off only or whether this was a shift for something that becomes a new role that you're going forward with will depend upon the person. I do say, and I've been saying this over and over, that if this is the first time you've come across this, if you've just seen the thumbnail for this and been intrigued, certainly by all means watch this one, and if you remain intrigued at this point about what this is saying about a soul activation journey for you, go back and see the others. Or click off this, go back and see the others and see it in sequence, because this is being done in sequence. And what I have asked Spirit to do is to have a through line for each pile, and that's very much showing up. I now really think by the time I'm filming this one, because I'm filming them in order, I've got a pretty good idea what the soul activation energy is for each pile. And I'm not going to go into that in any great detail. That's obvious when you go through the experience, but it's there. So I do suggest that. And as I've said in other readings and in a longer intro I did in the first of the series, if you feel drawn to other piles as well, in all of the readings or in some of them, by all means do that, because that could be a nuance on your particular thing. These are collective readings, but there is definitely a through line. So what I also say for anybody who's just come to this is there's a particular structure that we start with, which uses the Nameless One Tarot. This is 3 major arcana cards from the Nameless One Tarot by Alexandria Huntington. And this was chosen specifically because these cards have sigils that have been created to manifest the most positive attributes of the cards or the archetypes involved. So I felt that on a sort of subliminal level is really good at connecting you to the soul activation that we are exploring for you. And we're now at the point where the actual main change has occurred. So now we're looking at 2 stages are the reward. So we'll be looking at what's the reward of what this soul activation and what you've done with it is for you. But then there's some other steps that need to be gone through to fully integrate this. And the first is the road back. So we're looking at the reward and then the road back. And the road back could bring surprises, more challenges than you expected, something in terms of what you need to let go or keep to go back to the ordinary world, because having gone through a significant soul activation and manifest it in whatever way you were meant to do, you've then got to go, what do I do with this in the real world? Or do I keep doing this? What do I keep? What don't I keep? So this is what we're going to be exploring in this particular one. And then there's the final last 2 steps where it truly gets integrated, which will be in the 6th of this series, 6th and final of this series. So one of the things I have found is that sometimes a similar energy is coming up at various points. It was happening a lot with pile 2. As I thought would probably happen because of what happened in the 4th of this for pile 2, it's now shifted beyond that, which is what I would expect. But interestingly, pile 1 is getting this as an activation card, in the last 3 now. So there is really showing that there is some really core themes. So for pile number 1, we have the Emperor card. For pile number 2, we have the Devil card, which is very interesting given the energy of what pile number 2's journey has been over the series. And for pile number 3, we have the Moon card. So this is to basically, as I say, do try and watch the same pile all the way through, but this is also around the activation energy beyond the subliminal of your pile. It's also, is there anything in either of the other piles that you need to see at this stage that would help you in fully enjoying the reward of what you've been doing and finding the way back. So when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, I have the timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So you came to the reading with yet again the Emperor as the sigil that is activating your soul activation at this point in the journey. And that makes sense, because if you have been following this through, your journey has been very much one of coming into your own mastery and sovereignty in some sort of material form, in a workplace, in a healing sort of modality, in something where there is a material outcome and where the wealth or well-being of yourself and others is important. And what has been interesting in the journey was coming to terms with that kind of leadership and the responsibility and finding a creative and heart-centered way of taking that forward. So you are still in this position, and it suggests to me that even with the road back, all of these things, so there is an indication here of some liberation and letting go of some of the responsibility, which is nice because you've been carrying quite a bit with this. There's still a sense that you have mastered something, you are a leader in some way. So that energy is there. The two oracle cards, the first oracle card, this is your reward. And this is lovely. This is the spirit of joyous liberation. It's talking about you are joyful. You have achieved what you needed to do. You've brought the heart back into something material. You've led, you've inspired, you've created. You've brought the spring energy back in, which was shown so clearly in the last reading. So that's wonderful. And it says, although, you've had difficult travels and there's been burdens or whatever, you're now sort of free and clear to be who you want. So I do think there's a kind of a promise here that although you had to take on a lot of responsibility, and although you are a natural leader, this is part of what you've learned about yourself or that you've recommitted to if you already knew it, there is some more freedom. Whatever you have been able to do here has freed the energy and healed a lot of the energy to be able to move forward. So for you, the energy of the road back is actually reasonably simple because it's the keeper of youth. And this is, again, about if you've been really sort of pushing something hard and having sort of a lot of effort and so forth, there is now going back to something that is like more healing for you and more sort of liberating for you and rejuvenating for you. So I think this is showing that your reward is a freedom and a rejuvenation, and the rejuvenation is a large part of the way back. I think one of the things here will be, if you have put all this energy into helping others and leading others, what scarring for yourself do you now need to heal? I think that's going to be the real focus of the road back. Not so much what do you need, what will surprise you or you need to leave behind, but it's how do you now revive yourself, having put so much into this and now having had your reward, what do you do with that? Like one of the ways this could play out is, if you have put a lot into, say, your last job that you do and as a leader, and you've passed the baton on to the next generation and all that, and suddenly you're retired or semi-retired, and it's like, oh, what do I do with my time now? So there could be something like that. It doesn't have to be as literal as that, but that's an example of it. But whatever this is, I think your road back is more about healing from the effort that you've had to do and the sort of like the burden that you took on, and deciding what bits of that burden do you still need to keep as the sort of changed and soul activated person, and what can you let go of. And when we look at the Gnostic Tarot, definitely around the reward, Noria's journey, which is Wands, 10 of Wands reverse, a burden is going to be lifted from you. You although we're still in the energy of your leadership, you're freer now to do what you want to do than you have been. There was some responsibility all the way through here to others and to bring the heart back. But then I think this is about the road back. This is your own heart in the process of this. I think you've given a lot, maybe even unconsciously. But with Sophia's journey, which is Cups, with the 9 of Cups reversed, and then with Sophia's journey again with the Queen of Cups, there is a sense here of what is joyous for you now and what is true to you now. So I do think for most of you, there's a kind of transitional role. I think your natural leadership is there and it's still there with this, but you are freer now. You've achieved something very significant, and that the road back is what of that leadership is so true to you that you need to revive it and go into the next battle or whatever it is, and what can you let go of now, pass the baton on, as I say. I think that's the kind of the questions that are around this stage of the journey for you. So let's see what kind of specific area of life is most impacted by the reward or most challenged by the road back when you're trying to work out, well, what next? Romance and partnership. Okay, this may be, I do think that there's an energy that's been coming across with this, because there was sort of something that was around all the energy has been around kind of career, business, money for the most part, or well-being. This may be if you've been a bit of a workaholic or something like this is how do you reconnect and bring love back into your life and look at how love fits into it, because you brought love into the business or the vocation or the material world. It's now how do you find love for yourself? That's maybe okay, what is going to be yours now, and how does that fit in with whatever remaining responsibilities that you have. So let's see what the advice is for you. Discovery, new ideas, people or opportunities may be coming your way. While there is work to do to reach your goal, you may discover new strengths and passions along the way. I think part of your reward, I think this might be saying that part of your reward in your healing, if you are looking for love, will be finding love. And if you are already happy in love, will be having more time with the person you love and maybe bringing other partnerships in that are emotionally resonant. A lot of your reward because you have taken your leadership to bring something back to the heart and to the creative and blooming sort of energy, I think will be flowing over into your own relationships. But this is why on the road back, you're going to have to work out what have been the emotional costs and heart costs to you, and how do you kind of let go of what you need to let go of and keep what you need to keep. So very, very interesting. Let's have a look with the Lumen Tarot a little bit more about what your reward is, just a little bit more about what you can kind of enjoy at this point because you deserve it, because you've earned it, pile 1. The Philosopher's Stone. Wow. Okay. The Knight of Cups. Yeah, I do think you may find anybody who's looking for love, I think this process and this activation is likely to bring love in. The Lantern, the Tower, okay, and Spring reversed, okay, because Spring was upright for you in the last stages, bringing Spring back in, if I recall correctly. So, okay, that's interesting there. The reward, firstly, is that you've got to something very, very cool. You've got to something very alchemical. The Philosopher's Stone is like the ultimate ingredient in alchemy that all alchemists search. It is the life force that is in everything, but it's a little bit hard to distill and see what it actually is. So you have, part of your reward is, I think, the return of your ultimate life force, of the mystery of all of this for you. And it's playing out in some way with emotional offers coming to you. So as I say, whether that's love coming in or whether it's people who are very grateful for what you've done, whatever it is, there's a kind of a alchemical beauty around emotion for you, and a new idea about this is how you've used your wisdom. This is how you've used your psychic ability with Neptune there to show the Lantern. I feel the Lantern has a very similar sort of energy in some ways to the Hermit. So there is a sense of connecting with others, the light and the wisdom and the heart. There's something very profound that has happened with this. And it is a rejuvenating energy. But the interesting thing is that it's also with a true understanding of the patterns of what rises and falls. Because I feel with the Tower here, it's not like you suddenly have a Tower issue as a reward. I don't think you're suddenly going into that. I think what this is understanding and the wisdom of how you've almost created, without even being aware of it, a prototype to help people through great change by connecting creativity, inspiration in the heart, as you have done, and leading out with it. You've done that, and it's in preparation for knowing that, yes, the reward right now, the energy around there, all of this that you've done is to bring in something new, but it will have its time, and then something else will need to supplant it. And that will require the skills. I feel like this is you passing the baton in some way or creating a legacy. And this is why you'll be able to choose a bit about how much you have to be front and centre in this later on. And that may depend upon where you're up to in your life and all that kind of thing. But I feel like the reward is understanding the whole process, the process you just went through, the ordeal, the decision and the rebirth. There's a real understanding and the connection of the heart here, knowing that you can withstand anything, but also knowing that there is a sense of inevitability of time, and this will need to happen again, whether you have to lead out on it or whether you've actually shown the light for others to lead out on it. And it's going to depend on the situation. So that's the reward. Let's see a little bit about the expected road back, and then we're going to use the Children of Litha to see what the real road back energy is like, but what you expect of the road back. Tranquility reversed, judgment reversed, the artist, this is your creative energy coming through, the Nine of Cups reversed. All right, one of the things that's obviously happened in this process, when you have, and this is why there's some healing of your own heart that is necessary on the road back, you have taken a leadership role, you have helped and inspired and created in other people, and you've brought people to the heart. But you are aware in doing it, you've uncovered a mystery and you've understood that this has its time and other things will come. So the road back to you, I don't think you feel that the road back itself, like going back into sort of normal and going back almost to what you were before with just sort of inculcating the kind of sense of heart and love or whatever is going to be enough. I think that you think that you will already be seeing the shadow of the tower and the change coming up. But you are thinking the jury is out a bit on whether or not you have to come back and lead. I do think there's something here about whether you've passed the baton on. But whatever it is that you are carrying with you and what you're really going to take away from this is your artistic integrity and your sort of creative integrity. But there is some healing of your own heart. I think you've sacrificed something actually in the point that led up to this, or you've realized a kind of a sacrifice. Time, relationships, freedom, or whatever it is, through this you've actually given up. There has been a sacrifice. This is kind of what can you reclaim. But you sort of have a sense of, you know what, even as I do that, I've been changed, the world's been changed, you know, my situation's been changed. This is going to happen again. Not right now on the way back, but I can't just rest on my laurels. So I think you have a sense of that, which is interesting. So let's see with the Children of Litha Tarot, what Spirit wants to tell us about what the real road back is like. So when you do actually get the freedom, you've got your reward, and then you're starting to try and assimilate this back into ordinary life, what you would do more generally if your soul wasn't sort of activated to do something straight away. What is the real road back? What do you encounter in that journey? What surprises, what things do you need to let go of? What things do you need to keep either in reserve or front and center? So we have the Ten of Pentacles, the Knight of Wands, the Moon, the Death card, Temperance. Oh my goodness, this is powerful. And the Eight of Wands. Okay. Firstly, right at the beginning of this journey, this was about material things. So there is something material. You have had an impact, created a new legacy, created wealth, created abundance, whatever it is. And that remains. Like it's not that you have to give that up. And you've opened the creative doors for that going forward. And so you keep that, I think. But I think that you make a choice to go within, to look at the emotional toll on you and what is the mystery under this. I think because you've learned a mystery, and so you know the pattern, and this is why you're not really tranquil, that you make a choice to go within, to learn more about the mystery, to understand that better. Because that helps you keep in balance and keeps you moving forward and keeps you feeling free. So I think for you, the process in the road back is not necessarily to give up the reward and the outcomes and everything. That is part of your reward. And it's not to necessarily feel you have to slow down. In fact, if anything, you speed up from here on in because things are more in balance. But I think there is an internal mystery about what toll does this take on you? How do you help others? What might your role be in the future? What decisions and what is within your control and what isn't within your control? So I think you touch upon the mystery of, I guess, free will versus fate or something like that, or who you really are intrinsically. So it may be that much as you want freedom, you can't fully give up the leadership because it's so innate to you, but you have to work out a different way to do it, particularly if you have passed the baton on, if some of you have. What do you do with that? This is a very internal process, which sets you up well, I have to say, for the last 2 stages, because the first of those last 2 stages is the resurrection phase, which is very much the going within an internal process to ascend out of this and to fully understand it, and then you claim the true mastery. So you are on the road back doing that because I think you've achieved a great deal and you're in balance and you're ready, but it's a very internal process that's operating. So we'll bear that in mind as we sort of go through. So let's have a look at some of the archetype energy and power energy that occurs now with the reward and the road back. So we're going to get an archetype for the reward and an archetype energy about who you are on the road back. So an archetype that you will embody now as part of your reward, where you're becoming free now to do a bit more for you and to heal for yourself. The archetype, the child. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Going back to first principles. Free like a child. But a child who knows, a child who has the adult's head on their shoulders. So there is a sense of freedom and a lack of responsibility. Your reward is being able to take off the crown for a while and just enjoy. But then the road back, what does the road back tell you about what the longer term you is? The advocate. Oh, that's interesting. So having worked out the mystery and understood the heart and understood what this is, you may be moving from a position where you had to lead to be one where you advocate, so that you are freer of it, but you recognise the patterns and the knowledge and the wisdom that you have. You're meant to now advocate for something. You've understood the connection of the heart to the material here. And that's why a lot of your road back is about going within and making the choices and bringing things up to the surface to understand the implications of choices, because an advocate is talking about the consequences of choice and action. So I think there's something in that space that you are meant to realise. This is a transition from the leader to the free one to someone who's not completely free, because you still need to advocate for what is good. So let's see the power energy that you might manifest in each of these. So the power energy sort of mythically that you would manifest in your reward, in your victory. The phoenix, sacred space. Don't wait for someone to bring you flowers. Plant your own garden and decorate your own soul. Yeah, this is very much like it's that you can't rely on external forces will have spring, but it also will not have spring. You need to create that for yourself. Rejuvenate, the philosopher's stone. So there's a sort of sense of freedom, and that you can choose what you want to do now. And that it was pretty full on, whatever you went through to get to that, for the phoenix to be there. What about the advocate? If slightly shifting role, having learned from this, to be someone who maybe tries to advocate to avoid whatever it was that you had to do to heal whatever this was, but to advocate towards a better future. Pegasus, elegance. Through meditation, going within, you will be in love, and through love you will be in meditation. So there's sort of something here about internally connecting to your soul and the love energy that you have. And like going within is how you're going to find the voice to be the advocate and to understanding the philosopher's stone. It's very deep within you. You've actually found part of the mystery of the universe really in this. It's like how you now give it wings so that it can fly, which again is a bit like the Eight of Wands always feels like wings to me. Okay, so that's the kind of process. So let's have a look at what you might find along the way when the road back that could be surprising. We're just going to get a couple of wild card energies for you from the Blue Dragonfly deck. So this is on the road back when you're starting to understand you still have a role, but it's slightly different. The first wild card energy, protection, defense, set boundaries, guardian angel. So you will have spiritual protection around you, which is really good. But I think you're also going to need to, so you've understood something about the sort of rise and fall of things, and also the power issues. You've had to deal with power issues through this. So there is a protection around you. And in fact, it may even be that if you are moving into an advocate role, in doing that, you become more protected, because it's an advocate is for a cause, but doesn't necessarily have as much material benefit from it. And so there's a sort of a sense that the purity of what you do may be protected by understanding that's the role that you can take on. And metamorphia, transformation, alchemical process. Yeah, alchemical, like the philosopher's stone. It's going to surprise you how much you've changed. Like this is very much like right at the beginning, this is a material thing. It's like your soul was activated to think about a material thing that you wanted to win for those that you care for. That's kind of what it feels like in whatever context it was. And you've gone through this and you've used your natural leadership skills, you've used incredible communication skills, and you've used creative skills, and you've had a victory. But in the process of doing it, you've realized something about the nature of reality, really. And you've realized that the best use, or what you come to realize is the best use of the skills that you've mastered here will be to change from being just the leader to being the one who takes a cause forward. It's almost like in Arthurian mythology, King Arthur goes, I'm not going to be king anymore. I'm putting down the crown. I'm going to go and be a knight. And that isn't a lesser thing. It's understanding that in many ways, the knights are the lifeblood of the whole thing. So that's really interesting, something that you discover. Okay, let's see what kind of shadow energy you need to deal with then. So when you're discovering that and you're realizing that there are things that you maybe need to let go and things you need to transform even more, I just want to ask a shadow question from 2 different decks to sort of help you with that because it feels like part of the next step is to take on a different role where you're not the direct boss of something or the direct power, you're more the influencer. So what shadow energies are important to think about when doing the healing you need to do for this in the road back? Do I allow myself to experience and express all my emotions? Now this may be the thing. The whole liberation and the reward may be that, like, when you are in a leadership role and you're having to inspire and lead, you often can't show what you feel. So if Tower energy is going on, you've still got to show the sense of stability and answers and problem solving when everybody else is sort of having, a hissy fit around you. So I think this is moving or shifting this energy and this understanding to this different role allows you to express more about what matters to you and what matters to your heart. But if this is something that you feel, oh, I shouldn't be doing that because of the role you're in, you have to shift the role that you're going to be in. So from the Stories Oracle, a question to help clarify that even further for you. What are you protecting in the safety of your memories? Okay, how much do you need to change? What are you protecting of the old you when the new you may be much more powerful and much more spiritually adept, but is a different role? And have you taken on the role normally as the leader and so forth because it allows you to hide some of your own emotions and hide your own wounds? Part of this road back is to heal your own wounds so that you can move into this sort of more influential sort of role, I would say. Okay, let's get you some stars to guide you. Sorry, that just took a little bit of time because I almost knocked over two decks on my table with that. So, stars at this point. Jupiter, expansion, luck, wisdom, teaching. There is definitely luck, freedom, enjoyment. You are meant to have joy. This may be actually relatively new to you, I have to say, with this group, with the way it's gone through. Reconnecting to the heart and inspiring has probably reconnected you to joy. You may well be with this sort of like emperor archetype being so strong in your journey. You might have been used to carrying the crown so long that the joy of just living and changing and creating you lost touch with. So this is to keep you in the space of the joy and expansion and what could be possible that is good. And Sagittarius, adventure, independence, flexibility, free-spiritedness. Yeah, part of the change of the role too is also so that you don't lose the freedom that you have earned. Like I think Spirit is saying you will have really, really earned that. So in this stage, take the reward of the freedom, the liberation, all of that, the fun, the joy, the creativity, and being able to put down the crown for a bit and then do your own healing. Understand how much that weight of that crown has been. Let that go so that then you can decide you can move into a role that uses all the skills, abilities and so forth this activation has given you, but use it in a way that is more to be influential rather than just having to be the leader. So, and the power of influence is often far more powerful than actually situational or hierarchical power, interestingly enough. So let's just let's just get the... Actually, before I do that, I realised I didn't read you the affirmations, I don't think, for the cards at the beginning. So for some reason I didn't do that. Maybe you needed to hear this first. So the affirmation for the Emperor is, I protect and provide for myself and my loved ones. If I did read these, sorry, for some reason Spirit is saying to read them again. I can't remember if I did. The affirmation for the Spirit of Joyous Liberation is, I am joyous and free. And the affirmation for the Keeper of Youth is, I am revitalized, rejuvenated, and restored. So if I didn't read those out, maybe I was meant to read them now for you to understand this is part of your reward. You're meant to be free and restored and rejuvenated through this. But as I say, if I did read them out, maybe Spirit just wanted me to read them again by making me not remember if I had. So what we're going to do, as we've been doing in all of these, I'm going to finish with a card that brings us to the next level. So the next level, the last two steps, are the resurrection, where you go within, and you're preparing for this already, to really, really integrate the learnings of this. You know, having worked out what is and isn't working, what surprised you on the road back, where there is a kind of like, how do I adjust back to things when I'm not in the thick of all of this? It's how you fully integrate it, and then you find the mastery. So I felt that the White Light Oracle was a good oracle to bring us towards that kind of ascension energy that we'll be looking into in the last of the series. So for you, oh wow, we have the Sun. So right there, you know, life path, finding your life path. So this is perfect, really, beyond the life path as well. The Sun is our own inner knowing, our own inner light. So that's why we had like the sense of the moon and the death card leading to the Sun. It's sort of going within first, sort of almost into that underworld sort of energy, then into the light of the Sun and the truth of who you are. So this is about integrating it and becoming enlightened, quite literally. It's also, interestingly enough, the 417 hertz is a spiritual truth serum. So there is an energy here when you fully integrate all of this and you then move into your mastery. It's like you would find it very hard to tolerate propaganda, mistruths, misinformation, any of those sort of things. You will really be able to see things for what they are, shed the light on that, have the internal knowing, because as I say, you've somehow found the Philosopher's Stone, you've understood the cycles of things, and you've understood a shift in how to best serve, which I think is from moving from just being the leader to being the influencer. And this is where truth is very, very important. The most influential thing you can do in the long run is tell the truth. So I hope that resonates for you. It's, I think we're going to have a very interesting final step of the journey for you. So I hope you enjoyed this. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope I see you in the last stages of the journey in part 6. Welcome, pile 2. So you came to the reading with the Devil tarot card and sigil. And in this journey, if you've been in it all the way through, you are the prophets of this group. It's been very, very clear. And in the 4th reading, you went from finally having life catch up with your prophecy, being proven right, or being able to use your prophecy in a more material way, and then understanding the true extent of your power and how you needed that to be heart-centered because you were battling with an old order that wasn't heart-centered. So it was how you do that and not become the thing you despise, those sort of energies. So we had for 3 of the picker cards in your group, we had the Tower. You were always just ahead of the big change, and the big change has occurred in the ordeal. You've done that. So I thought we wouldn't get the Tower again, and thankfully we didn't. But we've got a morally ambivalent, interesting challenge for you now in this stage. So this stage is about the reward, but it's also about the road back. How do you assimilate this? Understanding how true your prophecy is, understanding how that connects to a magical power that you have that others may not have, and how you assimilate that. Makes it a very interesting, because you have come into power in a way that is unusual, and therefore you have to find an unusual way to deal with it. And the Devil card is interesting there because it is a card of bondage where we can become caught up in our own power, caught up in our own, the power that was liberating and helped with the change and and foresaw prophetically could become the power that could manipulate and could get drunk with its own power. There is an issue here that you have to deal with. What do you do with that energy? If you think about someone like Nostradamus, he was a prophet, but he also worked for Catherine de' Medici in some of the most labyrinthian court politics you could imagine. So I think that the part of the reward for you is understanding your understanding that your perspective on what is coming, consequential thinking, how history repeats or doesn't repeat, in what ways, all of those sort of things, and the fact that you're likely to be right much more than you're going to be wrong. It's how do you make sure that you are liberated from the shadow side of that. That's what you're having to look at. Even as you look at your reward, you're having to look at that in the road back, because you know something about yourself now that maybe you suspected, but now you know it, which is that you do see the future. So the interesting thing, therefore, is that this oracle card is about the knowledge of fate and free will. So part of the reward you have is you really do have a good understanding. Now, what can you influence, control, by your prophecies foresee? What can't you? What has to happen? I feel almost as though for many of you, in either a very literal way or kind of allegorically, you foresaw a number of things that were going to go through that tower moment that you've been ahead of the curve on and through all the way through this. You foresaw it. And maybe some of what you did to influence, particularly about the heart, was able to change certain things because free will came in when you could convince certain people. But there are other things that are almost like a fixed point in time. You have a sense now that some things are inevitable. How they play out maybe might differ, but they're still inevitable. And other things are free will. So it's a much more nuanced version of this than either thinking it's all fixed or it's all free will, which is a power in itself to understand that. But that's your reward. You kind of have a sense of it. You may even have almost been able to taste the difference of the prophecies that had to happen no matter what you did, and the prophecies that could be influenced. So you have a very finely tuned understanding of that. And so the road back is, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? And this is all about creativity. And I think, and this has been a theme that's come up a bit throughout this, and it's come up a bit through all the readings actually. So some of you may be going to a number of piles, that creativity is a bit of a purifying fire, if you will, to take something forward in its best possible way. So I think that this is saying, and I think I may well have mentioned it in doing your particular series here, that, there are some creative prophets, the George Orwells, the Aldous Huxleys, people like that. And that has been a very powerful way of awakening people and getting them seeing that certain choices will take you in a direction. You may be able to really shift that. In other things, maybe we can't. Certain things have to happen. You think about some of the great mythological stories, some of the tragedies and also some of the triumphs. There's a certain degree of there were fixed points in time that had to occur. So you have a sense about those things, and creativity can help you do it. The other thing about this is, because in the last one there was something about magic power, and I'm saying this now because I am hoping people have taken my advice and they've gone through with the pile, because I think it is important. There is a type of magic, and it's interesting because it connects to sigil magic, and we've been using sigils here. They're very powerful, positive sigils for the archetypes, but nevertheless sigil magic. Creative magic, where something you might create, paint, write, or whatever, can sometimes actually help bring it into the world. So I think that part of your road back will be understanding how you can use creativity to influence what is influenceable and to prepare for and best manage what isn't. And this is a very morally difficult question, because when you're doing it, to what degree are you encroaching on other people's free will? So I think this is an understanding of power and what the responsibility of it is. So the reward is knowing there are certain things that are beyond you. It belongs to the divine. But there are other things where you could influence it. And it's like, how do you creatively do this in a way that you can feel that you aren't caught up in this, that you're actually using it in the best possible way? Creativity again is shown here as part of your reward with Naria's journey, which is Wands with the Defender. So this is the Knight of Wands. You can move very quickly now. You're going to still move quickly. Like your prophetic ability and to be ahead of the curve is still going to be there. What has also happened as part of the reward for this, and part of what will protect you against the issues that could occur with the devil, is that you have understood the implication of relationship. This is very important for this, because if you started to use sort of magic of creation to try and make things happen, as I say, it gets into a very morally ambivalent level. It's one thing to see the future and to try and help people. It's another thing to try and create the future. And you may have a bit of the ability to do that. And you might have started to realize that about yourself. So I think part of the boon about this is the creative energy and connecting with others, collaborating with others, not only having it as your own thing, is part of how you can do this. And also a collaboration with the divine, understanding there are certain things that you don't get to influence. But there is a material worry with the Five of Pentacles here. And it's interesting because this is Simon's journey, and Simon Magus was a magician. And this is a point about the material impacts of things and potentially loss that could ultimately occur if we tilt it too much into being bound into something, or also alienation from others that could occur on that level. So I think your journey is interesting because it's how do you creatively and positively now work with the power that you have, and how do you the lessons that you've learned around connecting to the heart, how does that be a good navigation so that you don't infringe on the boundaries and rights of others, but you still help to influence and prophesy and guide people towards a better outcome. So it's you have a very tricky path because it's a very powerful energy. So let's see, what is the area of life in particular where you first sort of realize this? It may be the area where there were things that couldn't change. It may be the area where you most feel you could create something if you have the right boundaries around it. Actually, before I do that, I want to read you the affirmations. So the affirmation from the Devil card is, I am free of temptation and abstain from all my vices. So I think that is an important affirmation to go, not to get into the temptation of this, not to allow your own shadow side to take over, but to try and keep this clear into the heart. The affirmation that is around the reward for you, the tools of fate and free will, I see and accept reality and change what I can for the better. So this is changing what you can for the better, but it is what defines the better in your creative thing. And some of that is the interesting question about other people's free will. There's a way of looking at magic, because it is affecting the natural world in one form or another, or others in one form or another through your own will, which could argue that all magic is black magic. Now, I don't think that's necessarily true in the purest sense, because I think, there's angelic magic, there's magic for the collective, there's self-sacrificial magic, there's all sorts of things like that. But there is a moral ambivalence, and this is the thing that you're going to have to work at and how to integrate, and it is a really tricky thing to do. Then the affirmation around the creativity, therefore, as part of the road back is, I'm a creative, prolific and successful artist. So it may be going towards the creative energy and then letting it work its magic however it's going to, but without kind of pointing your prophecy and so forth at someone and trying to influence them direct magically. It's more like you just, as I say, like a George Orwell or an Aldous Huxley, you kind of send that energy out. But as I say, it's a tricky thing, Are we heading into an Orwellian world because of a magical power of George Orwell? And if he hadn't written that book, we mightn't be. I don't know. Did he give a textbook for those who would be despots for how to do it? It's a very interesting question that you have to grapple with because you're ahead of the curve. So that's making your point here really interesting. So let's see the part of life that is being impacted. Career and business. So now, what you are going to go forward and do to make money, to be who you want to be in the world. That kind of makes sense with the Devil card. Many of you may be in sort of big organizations or have access to that, or to powerful people. Very Capricornian energy. What's the advice? Since you're dealing with very, very important sort of energies and abilities here. Study. A new endeavor is upon you, and it may require new knowledge and skills. Put the intention out to the universe, and the right teacher will soon find you. So, okay, if you kind of realize this and you're thinking, what do I do now, and how do I avoid the pitfalls? It could be, as I say, a teacher around angelic magic, for instance, or something like that. But put the intention out there. That is something you can create. Create a story or an idea or a painting that shows a teacher coming to you that will help you deal with this, so that you do it responsibly, so that it doesn't entrap you, so that you are connected and in alignment with the divine. So that's interesting, and it'll then be something that sort of impacts how you do your business life, how you do your career or vocation life. Okay, so having sort of gone through a very morally ambivalent sort of energy here, let's have a look at what your reward is. And it does have something to do with understanding what you can and can't influence, what is fixed in time and what is open to free will. Let's just see a little bit more about what that is. The sailor, oh, there you go, the adventurer into something new. The executioner reversed. The Nine of Cups. Tranquility reversed. Hell reversed. Okay, there is definitely wanting to escape those sort of boundaries. And keep the heart at the center. I feel like part of the reward for you is really encapsulated in this sailor card, because it's about the adventure. It's about like learning to expand and understand this knowledge and this power you have, but it's also out at sea with the water and with the elements. The concept is that some of that which is a vice or a difficulty or kind of calcified energy can be washed away. So in the midst of dealing with the tempest and the vicissitudes of the sea, there is also a cleansing that occurs. So it's almost as though with the executioner reversed here, not ending the energy for you in some way. The reward could be going, okay, I've gone through the tower moment, I was right, it's all good. What can I create into the future? But it's almost as though here, staying a little bit in the heart of what you went through and understanding it fully, and maybe studying it with someone, not ending that energy. You've gone through it in one way, but not completely just walking away from it and thinking, okay, everything's sunshine and puppies. Like think about what shouldn't end yet to get cleared away. So this has to do with preparing the energy that you have in the road back, and knowing that what you have changed and influenced has also changed and influenced you. And it's like, what do you keep and what don't you keep? That you can't be just tranquil and sanguine about this. You've seen something about your own power, about how the world works and so forth, and you do need to release yourself from that risk. But you have to look at it. You have to look at it in its face. I always, when I look at hell here, I'm thinking of Dante's Inferno, and I'm thinking of when you get to the ninth circle of hell, you see the hell mouth. The only way out is through, is what Dante says. So I think that there is a thing here of you can't just... The one thing that would be a problem, the boon for you here, the reward for you here is the clearing away of that energy and not having your ability end, so that you can stay connected with the heart. But the one thing you have to make sure of when you're going back is not to be too complacent. You, more than any of the people going through this particular soul activation, needs to always go within and make sure of what the power energy is doing to you. It's a bit like, what this makes me think of is having this power of prophecy, particularly if you then understand it as a power to create, where there is free will and so forth, and where that could breach other free will. It's a bit like the kind of mythological story underpinning the Lord of the Rings. The power of the ring, the One Ring, was incredibly powerful and incredibly seductive, but also it enchained the person who had it much more than anything else. So this is understanding that. And so you, more than anyone, have to be able to look into your shadow going forward, and when you're thinking about what you want to create. And the creative energy could be a way of doing it. It could be writing poetry, it could be painting it out, but there's sort of something that connects back to this energy where you're clearing it away. And that boon is there to show you that. There's that kind of energy to help you defrag from what you've just been through and stay centered to the heart. But you can't be on the road back, and part of the understanding of the reward is that from here on in you can't be complacent. You can't just go, okay, it is what it is. You're going to have to constantly look at the energies and what that is doing. And you're going to still be prophetic, so you're still going to pick up when there's sort of disturbances in the field and so forth. So let's have a look at what you expect on the road back. Then we're going to use the Children of Litha deck to see what you actually experience on the road back. So what you were expecting on the road back, having had this boon of understanding, one, you were right, and that you sort of understand what we can change and what we can't change. The Seven of Coins, the King of Swords, Autumn reversed, and the Tear. Okay. So firstly, you expect some sort of outcome. This is why we got the career and business. You expect that this is actually going to have some material outcome for you that will grow and be good. You also do probably expect you're going to find a mentor or a teacher, or that you will have the wisdom to deal with it. The interesting thing is, though, that you do know that there is some sadness or melancholy that's associated with this as well too. With the Autumn card reversed, you kind of know that you could slow down a bit of moving into autumn and winter, but there is a time where you have to sort of withdraw. So there might have been a kind of an adrenaline rush associated with all of this, and that you kind of know on the road back that things have their cycle. And there's some sort of melancholy associated with that with the Tear. But I think you can also sort of see that understanding that melancholy is part of really understanding the reward and having the wisdom to understand the reward. So I think you think that this is something I can build with, this is something I can grow. I have the wisdom because I've been right. But, it'll be a bit sad because I've got to wait till the stars align again for the next thing. What will you really experience on the road back? The Magician. Yeah, that's who you are. The Four of Wands. The Knight of Swords reversed. The Hanged Man reversed. The Fool reversed. The Lovers reversed. Okay, all right. You're getting a wisdom. So that's good. That's a good sign. When you really start to think about the creative power of this and some of the sort of issues associated with that, you really, like, what is good is you don't need to be taught. Your consequential thinking, your prophecy is so good that you can actually apply it to yourself. So this is a very, very good sign. You will understand yourself as a magician. You will have a sense, because of the connection to the heart that you've done, that you want to have good relationships with people. You have the wisdom to understand that not putting a bit of a brake on what you do, not thinking differently about how do I use this going forward, could have a real negative impact on your relationships with others. So you do have the wisdom. So you're going to sort of hit that point where you understand that you could almost take on all the power of the magician. That's a choice you could do. But if you do that, this is going to be at the cost of relationships, and it's not the wisest thing to do. So I think that you really are starting to understand how to use this power on the road back, and what is appropriate, and where you need to put some chains on yourself, not chains on to chain your devices, but kind of like where you need to be in strict regulation. So I like that. I like the fact that you are wise enough to do this. That's really, really important. Okay, so let's see some other stuff around this for you. Let's have a look at the kind of archetypal and mythical power energy that's operating in these steps for you. So let's look the archetypal energy around your reward and then around the road back for you. So around your reward, the Ruler. Okay, so you do know you have power at this point, whether or not you hold a position of power, and some of you may have moved into a position of power as a result of being right with that Devil card there and with the career energy around it, but you know that you have power. The reward, you understand that. I think you also understand what a ruler can and can't do, which is important, because going with the sort of fate and free will energy, where can you rule and say something must be for a just rule, and where can you let people make their own choice? Then when on the road back, when you have to start to modify this power and decide what you're going to create going forward, the pioneer. Okay, that's nice. That's actually saying, all right, I want to explore new lands, which goes back to the sailor energy. I want to take what is good and what can grow and what can help others. That's an energy with the pioneer. I want to use all this energy to deal with how you make something good. The pioneers went into different places and made something good, built civilization or whatever. That was the idea, or that's what they were trying to do. There is, of course, a fine line between being a pioneer and being a colonizer and using this energy the wrong way. That would be more like that. But I think this is an understanding of the responsibility and how to use the creative energy in a way that is beneficial to others. So that's very positive as well. You do seem to have this wisdom, which is great. So let's see the mythological kind of power energies that are associated with this. So with being the ruler, with understanding your power, we have Bastet, wisdom. Your mind is a powerful thing. When you fill it with positive thoughts, your life will start to change. So you've understood that what you think, what you create brings things into being. And so as a powerful person, you are meant to be positive with this. And then the pioneer, looking at the creative energy to sort of create new and good things rather than just kind of control or influence what exists, I would say. The phoenix, sacred space. Don't wait for someone to bring you flowers. Plant your own garden and decorate your own soil. Yeah, this is using the creative energy for the new rather than trying to conquer the existing or something. There's something like that will help you use this wisely and in a way that's not so morally ambiguous. Okay, so let's also have a look at what are sort of some of the wildcard energies that you might encounter. So firstly around the reward and then around the road back. Around the reward. Final point, game over, conclusion, need to close, transmutation after the end. There is a shift here. And I think it's the way in wisdom you can use what you have without having it use you. Because I feel like you win something here. I think that you win an argument, you win a position, you influence all that can be influenced. Then you have to close that out and look at what is new. And you might not have expected that, but it's going to be necessary because otherwise you could recreate the thing that you tried to change. There is always that thing that happens, where you can become the thing that you despised. So there is a true ending that you need to have on the battle. You need to stop that battle. And you need to almost give up the rulership crown to move forward as well. So that may be a surprising energy. And then when you go into the more explorative energy and creative energy, I am winning, public recognition, career skills, talents, and success. You may feel if I give up what I've achieved here, is that the end? But in fact, when you start to use your skills to be more around growth and in the positive way, you win. And you're really saying when you perform almost the prophet of what is difficult and what has to change, then you are getting a lot of resistance. But when you are then the prophet of what could be new and built that is wonderful and good and creative and freeing and of the heart, people are going to listen to you. So there's a real shift that's going to occur, but that might surprise you a bit. So let's see, because when you are dealing with what you may need to give back or rein in for yourself, we have to understand the shadow. So I'm just going to get a couple of questions around shadow issues that you'll be dealing with on the road back. So firstly, a question is, what do I feel guilty about? Why do I feel this way? Okay. This is the thing that's interesting. I suspect that a large part of your journey was seeing what was coming and speaking it, and most people couldn't hear you because that's what happened to prophets. There's a point at which you influence this, and it happened really in the last one, and you realize that it's not just that you could see the future, but you were partly magically creating it as well and influencing it. You may, in that space, have done some things that you feel, I wouldn't want to do that again. That was crossing the line. I've understood what the line is with that fate and free will. I think just be aware of that, because if you know what that is, you can choose not to replicate it. A second question associated with that for you. It's also maybe some of it you don't need to feel guilty for. It would have happened anyway. Some things were just fixed points in time. So don't think that you're the master of everything just because you're more powerful in this than most. Then the other question to ask is, Ask yourself, what are you really fighting for? And I think often the profit is because you really are trying to do good and you want people to see something that seems obvious to you that other people won't see. And I think you will succeed, but there might be sort of something. Was there a point at which you almost became, as I say, like if you were dealing with propaganda or whatever, then using your communication and creative skills, you might have created propaganda to push something further. So you've got to now moderate that back. So there's something there, like what is it really all about? And it really is about the heart, and it's about what's new and what could grow and what is healthy and what is sacred. And getting back into that will help you use the power and the ability you have better going forward. So let's get you some stars to guide you, pile 2. Mintaka, nostalgia, belonging, community. I think that this is what you're fighting for, your people, your community, like remembering that. The 4 of Wands, the Magician is there to support the community. And you don't need to feel guilty for doing that. And Leo, big-heartedness, fierceness, boldness. It's a bit of two things. It is the very creative, and it is owning your space and being able to say, this is something I am good at. This is something I do better than other people. And there is nothing wrong with that because it is true. It is being seen in some way, but it's also being very creative, very expansive, and ultimately very generous. As long as things come from the heart, you will be fine. It's where it comes more from the ego and from control that you could get into the morally ambivalent area. So to prepare for the last readings in this series, which look at the resurrection point, which is when all of this knowledge, ability, soul activation is very internally integrated, and you sort of, the ascension energy is with it. And then for the true mastery of it all, what that really is coming to, I felt that a card from the White Light Oracle would be a good indication of part of that pathway towards the most divinely inspired area for your soul activation. So for you, we have, wow, Ishtar, Lionsgate, like Leo, pride, appropriate pride, generosity, power, energy, the ruler that is benign, all of those sort of things. It could indicate for some of you that around the Lion Gate portal time is going to be very, very important for this. You may want to come back and watch this one at this point if you've seen it before. But this is really about coming into your sovereignty in a way that is appropriate. Ishtar also is a goddess of night and also of light, a goddess of suffering and pain that we let go of, but also the renewal of connection. So there's sort of something in that. And when you integrate this and understanding that you are a player in a much bigger tapestry, the community, that connection, what you need to integrate, what you need to heal from what you've gone through and learned, but then what you can actually bring in terms of prophecy as light, as revelation. So that will be really fascinating to see what the last 2 stages are for you in this soul activation series. So I hope that you've enjoyed this reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in part 6. Welcome, pile 3, to your readings. So you came to the reading with the moon as the activating sigil and archetype for this stage. So as I said in the introduction, this stage is around the reward that you get, having gone through the change, the ordeal, the activation. And then also the first sort of steps on the road back, understanding what you do and don't integrate, what shifts in you, how has the situation changed you, how did you change the situation, all of those sorts of things. So the moon is interesting because for you, the journey has been a really interesting one. It sort of was a large part of your soul activation was in recognition of the fact that you could balance opposites, head and heart, light and shadow, all those sort of things really, really well. And you were moving quickly as a result of that into change and into creativity. But along the path, you actually, I don't know whether you literally got diverted or whether you realized a whole other layer to it, but in the last reading, we found that you were really a healer. And whether this is ultimately what you're meant to do going forward, that it was necessary. It was either a diversion on the path that was necessary before you could create, or it's something that you were meant to find out about yourself. When you're on one road thinking you're heading in one direction, suddenly you're diverted to actually find out what your true direction is. So it's going to depend upon who it is. It was a very lovely energy and a very gentle energy. So of the ordeals, probably the least ordeal-like, but nevertheless, it is something about who you are. And that's sort of showing up here now. And when you're getting your reward for having to been really flexible and dexterous to do this and shift and do what was required of you. But also on the way back, what does that mean about you? Because the moon is the card. There's certainly psychic energy, emotional energy, empathy is a very big thing about your empathy that came up in the 4th reading in this series. So that's certainly part of the light, a very gentle light is still there. Like, this is a very gentle energy that you're dealing with, but also of the light of the moon, it's not as clear. So there are things that you're not sure about. So the reward, given that this was a little bit discombobulating, I think it was sort of like something came out of left field that you didn't expect. The reward is recognizing you handled it very well, because this is the grand strategist card. So you really do, when you're looking at empathy and emotion, your mind is also engaged. When you're looking at the mind, you can connect with empathy. This is why you were the person that was necessary for this. This is why your soul was activated that way. It was to make you understand how many skills you have in your kit bag and how you can strategically use them at the appropriate times. You, of all the groups, could do a diversion on your soul activation, and it would still be part of what you were being developed into, and it would be handled quickly, effectively, strategically, and then you get back on the path. Or if the diversion took you to your soul activation, you would be able to strategically pivot and move in that direction. So this is part of the energy that's going on here. And the road back with the sort of the snake here of kind of rebirth and sort of becoming the new you. This is actually a very powerful type of archetype for the road back, because the road back is all about this. It's what do you keep and what do you leave behind? What is the new you? What is reborn in you? And what do you need to let go of, either in the experience of doing it? So for some of you, it may be I was a healer for a time, but I have to get on with it. For others, it's actually, that's what I really should have been all along, and I need to let go of the other sort of concepts of myself to be able to move forward. So it's going to depend on who it is. It's interesting that we have 3 reverse cards here. You're a little bit ahead of the curve on this in terms of the next stages, because the next stage is for the last of this series. The first one is the resurrection, which goes very internal, integrates all of it. So I think you're well on the path to doing that, a bit ahead of the curve. We have Christ's journey, which is swords, reversed 7 of swords. This is the mind being very realistic about what this is, very strategic. The 7 of swords reversed is being very clear, very honest with yourself. You don't have any frills on this. You know exactly what you did and why you did it, and there was a strategy to it. We have Sophia's journey, which is cups. This is reversed 3 of cups. You may not have felt that if the boon was to understand this about yourself and the reward was to understand about yourself, it's a very internal thing. It's not like it's going to be necessarily celebrated. It looks as though what you did had to be so focused on other people that it's almost that even though it was only you that could do it, it might have been a bit invisible. And then in the road back energy, where we have Naria's journey, so that's the wands, we have the 2 of wands reversed. You may not be sure at this point. Do I continue on the healing path that I've gone on, or do I go somewhere else? And so that's what's kind of partly the journey of the road back to determine that, and it will be different for different people. And it will also be partly, I think, the resurrection energy when we get to the next reading as well. So let's look at the affirmation. So for the moon, the affirmation is, I dispel illusion and reveal the truth. And that goes beautifully into being able to do the strategy of being able to understand those energies. So then looking at the master strategist, I am wise, clever, and intelligent. You are. So you have all the emotional energy, psychic energy of the moon, but you also know how to apply it in a strategic way. And then in determining who you are and what you change with the Master of Rebirth, I release the past and embrace the future. So I think for you, the question is, what past are you releasing? Is it this recent thing that operated in this soul activation where you got diverted? And is it like, now I'm back on the path of creativity, moving forward, keeping things in balance? Or are you releasing the creative energy to some degree to go more into the healing? And I think it will differ from different people who are coming here, but that's your That's your challenge on the road back. Remembering that you have the reward, that you're very, very strategic. You can work out whatever you choose what to do. So let's see the area of life this is particularly impacting in. Money and investments. Now that's interesting. What may be happening here is if a lot of your creative energy was towards something that was going to have a resource impact and then it ended up being a healing one, then it's whatever you do with this. If you go into healing, it may be how do I connect that back to my sort of money, my resources. And if it was a diversion, it's like I was happy to do that, but now I have to get back on the path because I have to put food on the table and I have to keep a roof over my head. So let's see what the advice is for you. Reward and recognition. Congratulations. Your hard work will soon pay off and take you in the direction of your dreams. Acknowledge your efforts and own your power. So this is saying, whatever this is, the choice will take you towards a kind of financial reward either way. So that's not really going to help you make the decision. Are you now meant to be primarily a healer in some way, or you are meant to be a creator? Which is it? But you get to choose either way. It's saying that's fine. Like you're going to be able to do this. You're going to get the support from the universe to do this because it's something that you're meant to do in whichever way you choose. So let's look a little bit more detail with tarot. So let's use the Lumen Tarot and see a little bit more about the reward, this sense that you have the strategy and the capacity, even when things aren't clear, including what you want to do next, to be able to think it through, connect all the sort of balanced areas of your heart and your mind and come up with the strategy that is best to move forward. Let's see a little bit more about that reward. The Six of Coins. The Queen of Coins. Yeah, it's definitely saying, don't worry. Whatever you do, it's going to be, resource-wise, it's going to be fine. King of Coins reverse. But you do have some ambivalence about that, so there's a shift. Like, what would you be loyal to make your resources? What is no longer something you need to do? The Prison reversed. What do you need to free yourself from? And the Caveman. Okay, all right. The reward is trying to work out the material outcome of this. This is really where you're at this point. This is saying that there is a generosity of the universe and you have a generosity of spirit because of the connection of head and heart, where you could be loyal to some material thing coming off this. But it is saying that there is something that had its time but is not going forward. So it is either that the healing sort of energy was a diversion and you can't get trapped in that because it's not who you are authentically with the Caveman reversed, or it's what really emerged in this with the healing is that's what's authentic to you. Going back to what your original idea was, which was probably how do I monetize my creativity or something like that, leads you into a prison, takes you away from your authenticity. So I think the strategist here is needing to say, what do I do now? Have I now found my true cause? Or was this just something I had to do? And it was something, the universe required, something I could do, I was well placed to do, I was generous enough to do, but now I've got to go on and get back on path. So that's the question here. So the reward is already taking you into determining that for yourself. What are you going to be loyal to? Either way, it's saying you'll be okay. So what do you expect on the road back? And then we're going to use the Children of Litha deck to see what you actually do experience as you really start to sort this through. But what are you expecting at the moment? Curiosity. Three of Cups. Seven of Wands reversed. Three of Wands reversed. Okay, I think it's interesting we got the Three of Cups here because we had the Three of Cups reversed in the Gnostic Tarot. You do expect maybe to be celebrated for what you've done. You also expect to have people curious about what you've done and to be curious around how you healed and all that kind of thing. But you don't necessarily expect everybody to step up and do what you did, and you don't expect everybody to necessarily agree, but I think you think that there's going to be a kind of, wow, that was different. I think you're going to find that, as I say, it's a bit more invisible than that. And you may find, and this may be part of the thing that you've got to sort through, that if you did just stay, if you just did it as a diversion and went away, it may not last. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay on that path, but it actually reminds me of things where I would be in workplaces and bring in a kind of very collaborative, creative sort of team, and we would get some really great things. And then I would maybe move on to another workplace, and then you would hear 6 months later that it reverted to the old hierarchical stuff. And I used to feel that sometimes workplace change is a bit like a rubber band, and you can stretch it, but the minute that you release it, it goes back to what it was before. So I think there could be a kind of an energy here where you're making a decision about that. You sort of expect not everybody to be able to do what you do, but you expect some to be curious and take it on, and that may not be what happens. If it does happen, then you may go, okay, now I can go and do something else. So it may very much depend upon what you see of those who've benefited from what you did. So let's see what is realistically going to happen on your road back when you're deciding what to keep and what to integrate, and whether it's some sort of combination of the two or whether you have to choose a path. Queen of Swords, Wheel of Fortune reversed, the Star reversed. Oh, that's interesting, because I'm pretty sure you had the Star as some of the outcome of what you were finding that again in the last reading, if I remember correctly. The Four of Swords reversed, a High Priestess reversed, and the Ten of Pentacles reversed. Okay, all right. Your strategic mind is really going to be the thing that you're going to now go more to your mind than to your heart in trying to sort this out. That's probably, under the circumstances, a good thing, but it is going to be dominant. You're going to feel, I think, that you can't fully make that decision on the road back. So it's almost like you're the snake trying to keep remnants of the skin that has been left to see what needs to carry forward and be integrated. And so it may well be in the next stage in the resurrection that fully happens. You're not going to feel that you fully know what your North Star is, but you feel like you have to talk about it or connect with others to work some of that out. There's a mystery that you need to work out about what is sustainable, and does that matter? So is it your responsibility or not? This is what your mind is going to be really important now, because there's a very strong emotional pull to, if it's not sustainable without you, or if you're not sure if it's sustainable without you, then you stay on that other road full stop, and that's all there is to it. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you just become a healer and that's it. But you're not sure if that is what you're meant ultimately to be doing. And I don't think you feel in the road back that that's fully clear. You don't want to make that decision yet. You want to see what happens. Is it sustainable without you? So there was something there where it's sort of like, oh, I keep the responsibility if I have to. And there's almost a bit of an answer there, I've got to say, for many of you, pile 3, which is that it may be a sacrifice, a self-sacrifice to stay on this path. It was necessary for a while. But if the only reason you would stay on the path is because it may not sustain without you, then that's an issue potentially. Just something to think about. Okay, so given that, let's have a look at some of the kind of energy in these two things, like archetypally and mythically in terms of power. So the archetypal energy around the reward of the strategist, and then the archetypal energy around this path back when you're trying to work out how much you have to transform and what that means. So the archetype energy around the strategist is the challenger. I think for many of you, you've healed something, you've been diverted, you've healed something, you've got something back to the heart. You're not sure, even in this, and this is part of the strategy, that it is going to last without you. Because there's almost like there's a force that could take it back to what it was. Then in terms of the road back and what you're trying to work out about, what is your responsibility going forward here? The healer, wow, okay, all right. This may be saying that this is something you do have to keep for it to last. But I think it's going to depend, because it's also, the healer may be what you need to let go of. It's going to depend. Let's have a look at the mythical power. Let's see if that makes it clearer. So around around the strategy, the understanding that there's a strategy, because everything isn't completely clear. The healing has largely occurred, but what comes next is not clear. I think that might be the issue. We have Anubis, pilgrimage. Don't be in such a rush to figure everything out. Embrace the unknown and let your life surprise you. So this may be saying that the strategist wants all the answers and you're very, very clever, but some of this is going to be unknown. Only time can show it. And so it may even be that the path back is to integrate the healing modality in a way and then determine whether that's what you use, because you are, as a strategist, you have many things. You are always balanced. So that may be the issue. Let's see what we get as a mythological figure around the road back and this healing energy. Unicorn, dreaming. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined. So maybe it comes down to is if you have found the healing is really truly what sort of you could commit to and engages your heart and your mind and everything, and it's your dream, then go towards it. But if you're not sure if it's your dream, and if you're maybe only doing it because you think, well, I've got to do it because I'm not sure who else is going to, particularly with all these people over there that might want everything to go back to what it was before, that's a whole other issue. So I think, as I say, it depends on who's coming to the reading as to how this plays out. Let's have a look at some wild cards then at each stage. So a wild card around the strategy, the reward when you realise how dexterous you are. Who run the world? Discover talent, artistic expression, internal resources. Is remembering that you are creative. Remember this, like you might have been the healing, but you are creative, and you might have found a creative way to do the healing and to do all of this and to influence it. There's an interesting hint there too with your strategy. If part of what you're worried about is if you walk away from this and go back to whatever your personal path was, it's all going to kind of rubber band back. Maybe finding the talent and the others, the resources that could take this forward. That could be part of it. Part of the strategy could be who else can do this in this group now that the healing has been done. And then when we're looking at the wild card around the healing energy, whether that is or isn't your long-term life path, let's create willpower, manifestation, manipulation. Okay, you are meant to create. So what this is saying to me very clearly is that really there are three options. One option is to just go full ball healing. One option is to go full ball creative. And one option is to combine the two. And it's like, how do you do that? What do you do? What is the balance? That's the wildcard energy. That's what's differentiating here. And remembering that you are a strategist, you will be the best able to work that out. But you do need to be honest with yourself. If you only go down the healing path because you've kind of thought, I'm the only one who can do it, and you haven't even explored if there are other people that you could help in a co-creation and pass the banner or the baton on, then maybe that's a little bit of ego, to be honest. Only I can do it. On the other hand, you might be right, but then are you responsible for these people? It's an interesting question that you're having to deal with at this point. So, given that, let's look at the shadow energy that could be part of the question for you. So we're going to use two different decks for two questions that can help with that. So the first is, how do I deal with sadness and grief, and what am I really mourning? So you probably have dealt with sadness and grief in this healing, and how much of that are you carrying with you? How sad would you be if you'd healed and showed the way and then it wasn't able to be sustained without you? What is going on there? Understanding that will help you work out what your role is. And what if loving even the undiscovered parts of ourselves is the greatest act of revolution we are capable of? Maybe in this healing journey you've found your own personal sadness. There may be a wish to divert out of that because you're having to face that. But equally, like that undiscovered part of yourself is the revolution, is the change, is the creativity that you're looking for. Equally, if the help, the healing and the help and so forth that you've done, it was almost done out of a responsibility or burden and not out of love. Maybe this is actually, if you love that side of you, you can understand how you integrate it better. It's interesting. You've got an interesting question to deal with. So let's get you some stars to guide you. This is the point, though. The road back is a stage of ambivalence in one form or another, so don't be too concerned about that. First star to guide you, Vega. Luminosity, creativity, talent, fame. I do think that many of you, this was always like your kind of the speed that you could do things, the creative energy, all of that. You are meant to do something like that. So if you could integrate a healing message into creativity in some way, that may be a way to cover both bases. And Cancer, nourishment, self-protection, intuition, and also looking after those that you care about. It might be saying use the healing energy for those closest to you, family and friends and so forth, but do focus on this. Maybe that's the way to balance it off. In either case, in the last of this series, we're going to be looking at the resurrection stage where this goes internal and you integrate it, and then what the final mastery looks like. So to lead into that, I'm just drawing your card to close this reading from the White Light Oracle for some of the energy of that resurrection and mastery that we'll be exploring. So for you, Bath Coal. The promise of this is that whatever you decide, this is a more authentic version of you coming through. So it's either that you decide not to do the healing anymore, though I suspect you will stick with the healing in some form with Bath Coal, because this is also a very healing energy and that is part of who you are authentically. But you either will incorporate that into your other creativity and your other life path in some way, and that just makes you more authentic, or you will move towards the healing more, because that is what this is about. It's a healing balm that brings us to who we are authentically. So whatever you're going to do in this last stage, you will be able to work that out. So that's what we will see. What do you incorporate? What do you really bring in from this whole soul activation? And what is the true mastery that you've achieved? So I hope you've enjoyed this reading and the series so far. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in part 6.